Hello and welcome to today's Back to Basics show. I'm Rico Burton and I volunteer with AARP Arizona. AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence of nearly 38 million members across the nation and approximately 900,000 right here in Arizona, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to families: health, security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. In the month of September, we will raise awareness and priority engagements of AARP's offering for older workers while helping workers stay competitive at work. AARP is a wise friend and fierce defender of older workers and has programs, offerings, and resources that align with each of these consumer pillars. We are a wise friend in a rapid changing job market. You can count on AARP to help you navigate your job search and career path and fight back against age bias. We are also a fierce defender. AARP is fighting to strengthen age discrimination laws to increase protections and help companies across the country to foster age diverse workforces that value experience. Visit us today, some of the resources we have online. Go back to some of the old videos that we have, and you'll learn an awful lot from us. Today, Coach Sherry Ann is going to talk about stress in the workplace. Good morning, Coach Sherry Ann. How are you?
I'm good, Lady B. How are you today?
I won't complain. Thanks so much for asking. Stress in the workplace. Woo! What do you have to tell us today?
Oh, well, it's one of those things where everyone feels work-related stress at some point or another in their career. And it's something that really needs to be managed because if it becomes chronic, so we have acute stress and then we have chronic stress. And acute stress is something along the lines of like a deadline that needs to get met right away. And then you have chronic stress that's just ongoing. And a lot of the effect, like sometimes some common sources of chronic stress in the workplace would be low salary, or if you have an excessive workload that's just constantly going and there's no break, or there's very little growth and advancement opportunities, that can cause stress because then you feel like you're ceilinged out. If it's not engaging for you, it doesn't necessarily, when it's not engaging, that can create chronic stress because you're just not engaged. Lack of support. If you don't feel your superiors are supporting you, or even your peers, it could be that. It could be just conflicting demands. There's all kinds of sources that can create, chronic stress in the workplace, and it's just so unhealthy because, as we know, when we're stressed, our bodies don't operate the way that they're supposed to operate. A lot of cortisol is released. It can affect you physically and it can affect your emotional and mental health. Stress is one of those things that is ever present. And so learning how to manage it at home, at work, and everywhere is really critical to your overall health. And what I tell people, it's the goal isn't to eliminate all stress because that's just really not possible. But the goal is to eliminate unnecessary stress and manage the rest.
So tell me, what is stress?
Oh, that's a great question. So it can present itself in a lot of different ways in people. So stress, can causes people to vasoconstrict. And so that's why when people are stressed, they tend to not breathe deeply, they shallow breathe. And when you have vasoconstriction, you also have headaches. So if you're experiencing things like headaches, stomach aches, sleep disturbances, if your fuse is pretty short, that's also a sign that you're stressed because you're not able to have a perspective and respond to situations. You have a tendency to react. If you're having the inability to really concentrate, if you have lack of concentration. So it's those are the things, if you're experiencing those things, then that's what stress kind of how it manifests and that's what it looks like.
So, okay, so those are things that manifest, but I guess I'm wondering if we had to have a definition of stress. And I think what comes to my mind is how we react, be it in our body, be it in our actions, to things that put us under pressure, or things when we're afraid, or things when we're concerned, when we're anxious. So it's about having, I guess, what I'm thinking, and correct me if you think I'm wrong here, the reactions we have to anxiety and to pressure when we feel anxious or threatened. Yes?
Yes.
No?
No,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
So chronic stress. So the effects that I shared with how it manifests itself, that leads when you have chronic stress, and those actually lead to anxiety. And then not sleep disturbances turn into insomnia. You might have high blood pressure. And stress also weakens your immune system. When people are
Mm.
stressed, their immune response isn't as healthy. Stress can lead to heart disease, because your body is not processing, because we make cholesterol and it's not processing those things. So then if you have excess cholesterol and you have plaque buildup, then you're going to have issues. So chronic stress is really very hard on our bodies, very, very hard on our bodies. And so, yeah,
Oh,
but anxiety, that's a huge one. I mean, a lot of people actually suffer from anxiety, more people than most people would like to admit. And it's one of those things that should just be talked about because it is a reaction. And so, if we can learn to take pause, and so one of the tips is mindfulness. And so, if we can learn to be very mindful of our actions and our words and appropriately respond to a situation, it's much better than reacting. And so, but when people are stressed, some of the things that happen are very unhealthy. Some people uh, choose to lean into eating excessively, because that's their coping mechanism. Or they're smoking, or they pick up drinking, more alcohol than normal, or drugs. There's so many things that people will lean into as far as coping skills that are very unhealthy. And so, here to tell you that there's so many healthy ways that you can lean into stress. And so it's, but our society tends to go to the unhealthy.
okay.
So, first things first, if you're experiencing all of these things, one of the big things I recommend is tracking your stressors. So, if you find yourself being very stressed at work, I would encourage you to get a journal. I like pen and paper, I like the feeling of writing. Some people don't. So, you could do audio journaling where you just talk into your phone. But journal about what is happening when you're feeling stressed, and in your journal talk about your thoughts. What are you thinking, what's going on, your feelings. Write down what the environment is like and the people that are involved, and just keep track of everything when you're feeling stressed. And then that way you're able to identify any patterns and reactions that you're contributing to the situation, because sometimes stress is not always 100% external. How we behave in a situation can also add to the stress. And so, but watching for a pattern will be so helpful for you to be able to see what your reactions are so that you can learn to adjust your reactions and respond appropriately instead.
Well, that's why increasing your emotional intelligence is so important.
Oh,
It is so important to do that because stress, in terms of reactions, has to do a lot with how we feel about things, our
yeah. Mhm.
emotions about things. And if I can understand, what emotion I'm actually feeling and put a name to it, then sometimes I can then understand or identify where that trigger comes. And it's very sense oriented. I can smell, see, taste, touch, or hear something that could really, really become a stressor. Absolutely. And so it is important, I think, to increase our emotional intelligence. By the time we're angry, so many other things have happened before that. I'm either upset, I'm either hurt, I'm feeling betrayed or bitter. There's so many other things, and that's part of how we end up reacting, which can also lead to the stress part of things. So if I can catch that ahead of time, the I smell cologne that my ex-boyfriend used to wear, and now I'm in a tizzy. If I can learn to resolve that ahead of time, then perhaps
Right.
I would react differently. Yeah.
Yep. And so my first tip that I had given that we'll kind of circle back around to is I encourage you to set 5 to 10 minutes aside a day for meditation or mindfulness. You can call it whatever you want. Some people think of the word meditate, and we've done a show on meditate that you can go back and look at. But mindfulness, just being aware, and you can do relaxation techniques every day, like before you go to bed. It'll actually improve your sleep. And there's also relaxation techniques that you can do if you're in an acute situation where you're getting ready to walk into a board meeting, or you're getting ready to do a presentation and you're feeling stressed because you have some anxiety. So doing some immediate breathing exercises. Uh, there's so many different things that you can do for mindfulness, and it's really quite beautiful. And a lot of the times, what I do, my favorite mindfulness exercise is I imagine like I'm sitting by a river, and I've shared this before. So I sit by a river, and it's in the fall time because I love fall, and leaves are floating down the river, and all of the thoughts are in my head. I place them on one of the leaves, and I watch the leaf float away because it's just a thought. And I lean into that thought and that emotion, and everything that's going around it, and then I just let it go. And that's my way of kind of letting go any negative thoughts that are in my head. I recognize them because it's important to edify how you're feeling, but also just learn how to let it go. So being mindful is so, so very beneficial to long-term health and also dealing with acute stress situations.
Good.
Have a technique that you use when you're trying to be mindful in an immediate situation?
What I have learned to do for me in terms of my meditation and the rest, prayer works for me
Mm.
because I have to come out of myself, because what I recognize is a lot of times I don't have what I need to work through the moment. And so because I believe in higher power, I offer it up there.
Mhm. That's
Mhm.
wonderful. I love it. So another tip is to set priorities when you're feeling stressed. Like one of your stresses is, excessive workloads. Learn to set priorities and realize, what is important in the moment. And also part of that is learn to delegate. Learn to identify, what you can pass off, to a coworker, a colleague, somebody that's, also a subordinate. You don't have to do all. Like, I think and I'm guilty of that. Like, that's one of mine. It's like, I'll just take care of it. Like, I can do it faster. But as I've gotten a little wiser with my years, I've learned to delegate and to accept, what comes when I delegate. Because that's the other thing is, tip number two is recognize, or tip number three, actually, sorry, recognize your intentions. So sometimes our own personal intentions and expectations, so intentions and expectations, can harm a situation and can make the situation much more stressful. So managing your intention when you're working and your expectations from others, and learning how and when an expectation is appropriate. Because sometimes it's best to not have an expectation, but unless you're working on a very specific project and there's goals that have to be met, so then it's a little different. But recognizing and identifying, those things is very, very important.
I think understanding, like you say, understanding your agenda. What is my intention here?
Mhm.
And if my intention is pure, that's going to be a lot easier on me. I think less stressful than if my intention is has an agenda attached to it that may not serve me well.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, I resemble that remark sometime. Sometimes somebody may say something and you want to say something back. And the intention is to get them. I was like, ooh, okay, get them. And now I can get you with my words. Now I can get you with my actions. And we do this all the time in the workplace. We sabotage other people. If a report is due at 5 o'clock, we give it to our boss at 4:59, knowing that he or she may need it to do something else with. But now we feel better. But as we go back and take a look at that, we recognize that that wasn't a good intention to have. And then there's another piece that's on, especially if you have some kind of conscience. And now you have to deal with that weight, which can additionally add stress. Oh, this is just so ongoing, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be a hamster wheel if you're not careful. A really bad hamster wheel. Uh, so in it's have short-term goals, because if you have, like, this kind of goes back to also when you have a workload that is excessive and overwhelming, learn how to, like I said earlier, delegate, but set short-term goals so that you can feel successful. Because that is another thing where people have a lot of stress is they're not feeling successful at work. So set markers and reward yourself. and, reward yourself appropriately. Some people like to go shopping, some people reward themselves with food. Uh, but you'll have to figure out what reward will work for you and what will actually motivate you. But, you know, be cognizant of setting those goals so that you are feeling successful at work.
That's important, and sometimes the goal does not have to be anything that's real tangible. It can be the reward can be that you did something good for somebody else, or now that you're feeling more at peace. I think guarding your peace is so important. If you can find a way to say, yes, I'm rewarding myself because today I kept my cool, I didn't get upset at somebody even though they tried to make me upset, or I imagined that they tried to make me upset, and I'm going to reward myself by smiling at everybody I see. So it can be something even as simple as that, which also then lends itself to better relationships in the workplace.
Yeah. Well, that's actually my next tip is
Oh,
focus on the positive in the sense of finding the positive and the joy in things. And that will help your attitude and your production so much more if you're focusing on the positive. If you're constantly focusing on the negative or what is not happening, then that's where you will stay. But if you stay positive and focus on moving forward, then that is the definite direction that you're going to go. And positivity is it's so electrifying that like people want to be around that. And so the more positive you are, people are going to want to be around you, support you, and whatnot. And so, yeah, finding the positivity in things is so critical to success.
glass half full.
Oh, yeah. And along those lines, too, my next tip, it seems so funny, but haha, but in the sense of it's just laugh. Find time to laugh. And if you're finding laughter and joy at work, you're going to be so much happier to be there. It won't be as stressful of an environment. And sometimes you're going to have to find things to laugh at, but there's actually laugh therapy classes where people will actually go through the exercise of laughing, like a fake laugh, but they'll do like different styles of laughing, like they'll do a cackle or, just high pitched, low pitched. And then if you're doing that, you're going to find yourself laughing at yourself regardless because you feel and look like a fool. But but then it becomes a genuine laugh. And so finding laugh and joy will also help manage stress. And it is important to find the joy in the day.
I agree.
So some people like to listen to music to manage stress. And I music is a happy place for me, but that's not one way that I use to manage stress, but some people do. Like my oldest child, she'll be 20 next month, and that music is her thing to manage stress. It just distracts her. It helps her brain just kind of break down the situation while she's got music on. And so she's always got music on in the background. She's always got one thing in her ear with music. And music can do that for people. So, and music also can transform you to a different location sometimes to help give you some mindfulness. So, if music is your thing, use music to do stress management. I know a
I
lot.
Yeah, music is that's one of mine too. I absolutely enjoy it. And but music, like you say, it can transport you someplace, it can soothe you. You have to be careful what you listen to, and intentionally come up with some things that are going to be soothing to you, or otherwise it can
Yes,
have an adverse kind of
right.
effect for you.
So, my stress management is exercise. And so that's my favorite tip to use for stress management because when I go exercise, it gets the blood pumping. My brain just is a little clearer. I can process. I mean, usually when I'm out running, that's when I, come up with some of my best ideas. And so, but using physical activity, will help also relieve stress, but it's also going to help you sleep better. And sleep is so very important because if you're stressed due to and you're not sleeping due to stress, it's just going to be a compounding situation for you. And so that's why exercise is one of my biggest tips. And it doesn't have to be anything strenuous. You could just go for a walk, or a hike. And for me it's running because I love to run, or swimming. Swimming is such a methodical sport, and it's just you in the water because you can't really, I mean, you can put music there, they do make headphones for swimming, but it's just the sound of the water. All you're looking at is the bottom of a pool or lake. If you're lucky enough to be somewhere where you can swim in a lake, but swimming is a great one. Dancing, you could go dancing because then you get the music also involved. Cycling, if you like, my mom has a fun little beach cruiser, that she'll take out and just tool around on the greenbelt down in South Scottsdale, and that's just nice because you can get outside, some fresh air, some vitamin D from the sun. But exercise is one of the best things that you can do. And if you're at work and you're in an acute situation, sometimes if you just go to the stairwell and do stairs, like just a couple of flights of stairs, it will clear your head very, very quickly. You don't have to do them fast or anything, but just go down a couple of flights, turn around, come right back up. Uh, and so it's getting exercises. There's so many benefits to it for sleep, managing stress, moving your body.
Wonderful. That's true.
Yep. That one's definitely mine. And if you are in a situation where you can't really get in any exercise, and like I've said before in previous shows, I really try to get people to shoot for 5 times a week, 30 minutes each day. And if you can't do a 30-minute block, do two 15-minute blocks. And that of itself will just give you the opportunity to sort through some things when you're out walking or doing whatever you choose to do for your activity, and just kind of clear your brain. So try to get in 5 days a week, 30 minutes each day. And if that's even challenging for you, then try to focus on, like, when you're going shopping, park farther away from the door so you can get some more steps into the store, or use the stairs at work instead of the elevator, or really get physical in cleaning your house, because that's a really physical, activity, vacuuming and cleaning showers and things like that. But so there's things that you can do. Or if you don't live too far from the store and you have a beach cruise like my mom with the basket on the front, you can bike to the store and get the few items that you need. You can't do that with a big, huge grocery run. But there's ways that you can fit in being active, and it will certainly help.
Well, part of it, of course, too, is, and we all know this, it is prioritizing, you know, things that you want in your life. So if I want to be healthier, if I want to live a less stressful life, then we make time to do the things that are going to make that happen.
Hmm.
And exercising is absolutely one of those things. And so, we fit in everything else we want to fit in. So we need to be able to fit in some things that are important to us too,
Yeah.
to our health.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that there were doctors out there that would, instead of writing a script for stress, or anti-anxiety medicine, that would write a script for walking, or write a script for, go find a dance class. Like, that would
It'd
be
be
my.
nice, be nice if insurance is paid for those kind of things too.
I
So yeah.
know, I know. So along with exercise, another really good one that you're not going to be surprised about, but that is paying attention to your diet. And especially if you have a lot of chronic stress, you need to make sure you're getting antioxidants, which, eat the rainbow. Eat as much of the color as you can, with your fruits and vegetables, because that's where you'll get your antioxidants. Make sure you're getting plenty of vitamin C to help your immune response. Make sure you're getting in some magnesium, because magnesium will actually help you sleep and help with muscle cramps that some people suffer from at nighttime. And really try to minimize your junk food. Eat foods from the circumference of your food store that you shop at. But paying attention to your diet will be a huge, huge part of helping manage stress.
Are there, I imagine there would be if you can just Google some things that say foods to eat to lower your stress.
Oh yeah, in antioxidant foods will pop up immediately.
Good.
And so, yeah, it's just, and a lot of it's too, just staying away from processed foods, processed and junk foods. And so those things are very, very important. And like I said earlier, next tip is managing your sleep. And we've done a couple of shows on sleep because it's such a huge necessary thing that people just take for granted. Like, they don't really honor themselves before they're going to bed, and really finding, setting a good stage to get good night's sleep. Because sleep is when your body is really repairing itself, and your brain actually washes itself and files everything away from the day. And so setting up a good sleep routine is really, really, really critical. Really
And
critical.
letting go of things, but try to go to, when you go to bed, make sure you're in a more peaceful state. If you go to bed and you're already agitated, that's certainly going to impact your sleep.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And the next tip is don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're really struggling with managing your stress and you see it impacting your life and your health, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's so much help out there to be had, with counselors and whatnot. And I want to say it's morehelp.org, or I should have had it looked up, but I've heard about it on the radio actually. It's like you can call in and find counselors that will be able to help you online. You don't have to go into an office. But finding a counselor or a therapist is, I think everybody in at some point or even throughout their life should have a third party that they're able to talk to. Yes, friends are great, but us as humans, we seek out friends that we know are going to give us the answer that we want from them, and it's just human nature. It's very rare where you can have somebody that will shoot totally straight with you and tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear. I'm not saying people don't have those friends, because I'm actually one of those people for a lot of a lot of my friends, because they'll come to me when they know I'm going to shoot straight, because that's just how I am. Because I've been doing this work for so long, but we have a tendency to go to people that are going to continue to feed us the way we're feeding ourselves, and sometimes we need to get out of that cycle. So having a counselor or a therapist, a third party that will help facilitate that and give you tools to manage your stress in the workplace or at home or wherever you're experiencing. But we're talking about at the workplace here, because it's challenging when you're at work, because your career might be on the line, your salary might be on the line, there might be a lot of things that are on the line. So seeking help from a third party is actually really, really beneficial. And it doesn't mean that you have to stay with that therapist for an extended period of time. Sometimes you just need a couple of sessions to get things under control, and you can move forward, because they'll just give you tools to move forward.
There are many employers too that offer things like EAPs and employee assistance programs. And so sometimes, Weight Watchers or workout systems, different things like that are offered for free or at a
Mhm.
minimal cost to employees. And so that's an opportunity to take a look at your actual workplace to see how invested they are with their employees and what they have to offer too. And their support groups, there's a lot of things that perhaps you can find there. And I know that people have a lot of trepidation about that, because like, well, will my employer know that, or will they think I'm unsatisfied or something if I take advantage of these? But that's why they're there. And certainly
Mhm.
you can use your own discretion, but those are options for people too.
Right. And I would be careful, definitely look to see if you have support at your employer, to see if they will help facilitate that. Because I think a lot of them do offer it because they want their employees to be successful. And if you find yourself in a stressful environment, sometimes one of the pitfalls that people will fall into is they start commiserating with their fellow workers. And that is the last thing that you want to do, because that could come back to bite you, and it doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help your coworkers. So if you find yourself in a commiserating situation, I would strongly encourage you to journal about that and exit that as quickly as possible, because it's not going to help anyone, especially yourself.
Agreed.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my tips. And then sometimes, actually, last one is aromatherapy. Sometimes if you're at your workplace and if you can have a smell there that makes you feel good, and brings joy for you. So aromatherapy, just like music, can transform you into a different, transport you to a different location, a different space to think about things. And aromatherapy actually sends messages to your brain and your emotions, so because we're very sensory, we're humans. So our smell is one of our senses, and it definitely sends messages to the brain. So that's why aromatherapy actually does work.
Excellent. Excellent. Well,
So yeah.
there's a lot of tips there for us in stress in the workplace. When I think of stress, I'm thinking S, simplify my life, and T, make sure that I take the time that I need for myself. Maybe R, relax. E, exercise. S, stimulate my mind, in a way that is going to be helpful. And then the last S, get some sleep. How about that? So you have shared some things with us, and I think I'm going to use that little acronym I just came up with now and see whether or not that's going to do anything for me. We appreciate you. Looking forward to the next time that we're together. We hope that you all have learned some things too. Now, be sure to go to our website. There are a ton of resources out there, some that you can look at virtually, and some things that you can begin to sign up for and go to now in person. There was even a belly dancing class, you all. Belly dancing, right?
I love
So
it.
we look forward to seeing you the next time around. And thank you so much for spending the time with us today. Have a wonderful week and God bless.
Thank you.